The injury news continues for the Florida State Seminoles in spring practice, a must-get portal player, and some recruiting news here on Locked On Seminoles.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Head over to 5hourenergy.com and choose from over 15 flavors. And if you need one right now, there's a grocery store or a convenience store near you to take care of it. We're going to talk about three different areas today. At the end, we're going to have some recruiting, some thoughts on a player that I interviewed not that long ago that made a nice little visit to Tallahassee. We're also going to talk about a must-get portal player for Florida State, somebody who just entered. This is the rarest of the rare, an elite kid academically, socially, and somebody who fits a position of need for Florida State right now. We're going to talk about him extensively, but we're going to start off with some unfortunate news that, well, it just continues. And that's the injury bug at Florida State from spring practice. I had spoken earlier this week talking about Edwin Joseph. That was actually yesterday, but it just seems like this has been building. I'd heard about some nicks and bruises, but Joseph being out hurts because Shaheem Brown was already out. That sucks for your secondary, and it continues. There's a couple of different guys in that secondary that needed those reps. So maybe they'll get some, and that's the good news. But on the offensive line, you've got Jacob Rizzi banged up. He's out. And you also have maybe my favorite player returning on the defensive line for Florida State, who's no longer going to be playing either, and that's Daniel Lyons. That's per the press conference yesterday by Mike Norvell. There are other guys too. Waverly just transferred in from North Carolina. Caleb came in this spring, and he's a linebacker. He's been banged up too. He's out. So that's a third player. And overall, before I go into each player and the position, how it impacts it, this gives me concern on two other levels. No, before you guess, I'm not saying this is anything that Florida State's doing wrong. Spring practice, it happens. Sometimes there's a rash of injuries. But number one, when you have this many guys get banged up, especially during a year when you have not one but two coordinators change, so you got verbiage you got to learn from the playbooks and all that, guys just can't afford to miss reps no matter why. It is a killer. Coaches want to see you go live. They want to see you do it a bazillion times, and your teammates do too. So that's unfortunate. You got guys like, again, Lavely just transferred in. Rizzi is a guy that played some last year, but could he maybe make a move and get in the starting lineup? All these things are tough. And then Daniel Lyons actually made a lot of plays last year. He might have earned a starting spot this spring, and he's banged up too. These are all guys that were in contention for playing time. That's rough. So, and secondarily, that's just a morale downer, man. Like, even if it's not severe injuries, and to my knowledge, they are not. I have not heard on that one way or the other. Let me be clear. I do not know. But that really sucks. So in a couple of days, you've got like 4 guys out for the rest of spring. I understand that sometimes there's precautionary reasons for this stuff, but that doesn't look good to me. So with that, here's my final point about the overall impact of this before we go into the positions. My concern, although I understand if they do it, is that the coaches will pull back on how much they hit to the ground. It is my incredibly strong belief that the elite programs, the biggest factor they have, especially during the season and to some extent during spring ball, their biggest advantage is the ability to hit more in practice or be at least a little more physical and play frontline guys more often because they have more depth. Florida State is not in that position right now. They're not even close to that position. So when they do lose players competing for starting spots, and then they have to put, it's always next man up. If they put somebody in there, they don't have any idea what's going to happen. Then you look at it, well, if this young man gets hurt, we really don't know about the guy behind him. I worry that they pull back. But at the same time, again, I understand why. Florida State is not in a position, especially in the trenches, to be pulling out of that. But I get it if they do. I highlight out, like, for instance, Daryl Jackson probably not going to play a ton this spring in the actual one-on-one live reps. He's Daryl Jackson. You kind of know who he is. You got to go through the bag drills and training and understanding the techniques of the new defense. I get it, but he's a senior. They're probably going to mitigate risk with him being injured. So some of the younger guys probably going to play a lot. That's fine. But when somebody like Daniel Lyons, who did play quite a bit last year, but he was on that cusp, he needs all those reps. And that just really, really irks me because no matter the school, I want to see the players get a chance to play, and it just ticks me off. So ran over, but now let's talk about the position structure of this. I won't spend too much time on it, but again, I don't expect Darryl to play a lot this spring. And to my knowledge, he's healthy, but you don't need him to. So what are the guys with Daniel Lyons are going to probably get a chance to play some this spring? KJ Sampson and Kevin Wynn, I think two big body guys, maybe Jamari Flagg's possible. You could see that. The question is, again, there's another guy I'd forgotten to talk about this because he's been banged up earlier. That's Jason Jenkins, another guy. He's the young man that transferred in from Tennessee. He didn't get to see him much. McCray and Diggs, the transfers that came in from Western Kentucky and Coastal Carolina, respectively, they should get even more reps. All those guys. And here's the other one, and I don't know what they're going to do with him in general. And it's why I have the transfer portal news secondary here, because it's a defensive edge player. Which side is not Amari Williams? He will definitely be a weak side pass rusher. Will James Williams play exclusively as a stand-up jack? Will he play defensive end? And that other spot, will he rotate? Is he just a strong side guy? They're going to be able to try him at more spots now because there's not as many guys able to play. So you're certainly going to get more reps with that, and he knows the defense anyway. Maybe that's the good news out of this, trying to find a silver lining here. But again, the big guys in the middle, because Daryl's not going to play as much. Again, he doesn't need to. Kevin Wynn, KJ Sampson, Jamari Flagg, any of those guys, they definitely get a chance to play more. And maybe a couple of them play more than those. Maybe they rotate between defensive tackle, defensive end, and those guys. Like, I don't know how they're going to do it because they're running a version of a 3-man line and a 4-man line. Which players are good at both will not only depend on their physical ability, but their ability to play in terms of the scheme. They got to understand it. They got to understand the verbiage. Who adjusts to that is anybody's guess, and that's why reps are so important. Looking at the offensive side, I don't know where Rizzi was going to play specifically. I know he's an interior guy, but was he going to play guard, center? Is it right guard he's better at? Is it center? Like, there's a lot of different ways you can look at it when you bring in a new O-line coach. I know that Herb Hand likes to rotate guys and get a better sense of that in spring and fall camp. Like, he wants to cross-train with his guards and centers. But at the same time, we'll see. Maybe Rizzi being out, somebody else steps up. Maybe, for instance, maybe it's Andre Otto. Maybe he takes some more reps at center. Maybe somebody else, maybe Jalen Early even plays some. I don't know. I'm just completely guessing here, but they've got to find somebody else. With Rizzi being the guy that's banged up, you got to have at least 2 very competent centers coming out of every spring practice. And we'll see who else they use. Maybe TJ Ferguson, maybe it's Richie Leonard. I don't know. That's something to think about. And then also just overall, as it relates to the offensive line with Rizzi being banged up, as a reminder, they got not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 transfers that came in, all good players, and we kind of guessed on where they would play, and they probably are. Gunnar Hansen is going to be left tackle. The big fella, Pettis from Ole Miss, he's going to be the right tackle. Which guy plays guard and center? I think, again, because Hand mixes and matches, you could probably guess that Medley could play some center for you, but Luke Pettibone's a guy that's played it before. So most likely he's the kid from Wake Forest. I assume he's going to be your starting center. I don't know which side Adrian Medley is going to play as far as guard, right or left. It really doesn't matter. It's just comfort with whoever the other guy is at the other guard spot. But it would be nice to be able to put in Jacob Rizzi and to rotate him in, even if he's not the starter, so that he has a feel with these guys. So again, overall, this is just unfortunate. And I hate to see it this early in spring practice because you're roughly halfway through, but not quite. You've got a big scrimmage coming up, and they can't even get to that. The only other upside is like some guys you really don't know about. They're going to get more reps because it's just next man up mentality. and we'll find out who that is. When we come back, we're going to talk about an absolute, no doubt, must-get transfer portal player. Great student, great player, proven, and again, he's a graduate now after this spring at the school he's at. That is next here on Locked on Seminoles. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team plus the gear wherever you go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. This show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to see on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Who do you got? You got Florida? Do you have Auburn? Do you have somebody else? I personally think Florida's going to win the tournament, but this is a really close one. Whichever direction you go, there are a lot of different options for prop bets, player bets, quarters, halves, into game situations, live betting. It's also easy and fast. The FanDuel app is really easy to use. So visit FanDuel.com and get into the college hoops action all tournament long. David Bailey is in the transfer portal. This isn't just a good football player. This is an elite football player, especially for the scheme that the Florida State Seminoles run. He's an edge defender that could be an outside linebacker in a traditional 3-4, or put his hand in the dirt and just get after it in a 4-3 and a 7 technique on 3rd and long, a guy that could hold the edge against the run. And again, graduate at the end of spring. He's just leaving Stanford. I'm sure you've probably heard about the Troy Taylor situation. He was relieved of his duties for a couple of days ago by none other than Andrew Luck, who was a former Stanford player and is now the GM at Stanford. And now they got players starting to leave. Bailey was a big one. I'm guessing he was probably induced within about 10 seconds of the firing. And I'm not kidding. Like, he would literally probably have people illegally contacting him almost to the second. But this is why. 6'3", 250, 3-year guy that's played every year. He's played in over 30 games in college. And even playing on a defense that stunk, I mean, Stanford was really bad, he's a guy that rolled up some stats. Consider the following. Last season, David Bailey accumulated 31 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and 7 sacks. He had 8 quarterback hurries, a pass breakup, and 5 forced fumbles. And here's the biggest factor. As I noted, that's not a great defense, and I'm being very kind. Teams, when they go up to the line of scrimmage, they're going to know where number 23 is at. Imagine him playing on a defense that has much more talent, where you can't key on David Bailey. He could be a double-digit sack guy, a potential All-American. It just so happens that Stanford runs a defense that has some similarities, not across the board, but at least some similarities to what they ran at Nebraska last year. The same defense that Tony White, Evan Cooper, Coach Potroast, all those guys that came to Florida State operated. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm saying find a way regardless. You have question marks on the edge because you don't have a ton of depth, at least not proven. The guy that you got coming in, there's nothing wrong with James Williams in terms of physical upside, but he still wasn't a full-time starter at Nebraska. You got Amari Williams, who should technically be going to his prom right about now, who enrolled a year early but played tight end last year. Who's your number one pass rusher? Your proven guy? Oh, that's right. You don't have one. Not from a proven standpoint on the edge. I know it won't be cheap, and I know it's probably not a popular opinion with those in the administration and the athletic department because of the price tag, but I imagine David Bailey is going to be worth it. He's worth 1 or 2 wins for the right program. Is Florida State willing to buck up? And I mean that figuratively and literally, because if they are, it could be the difference between going 7-5 and going 9-3. Elite pass rushers do not fall into your lap very often. And I'm not saying again that this would be easy, but if you add him, think about the following. You would have an opportunity to put James Williams on the strong side, a little bit more. James is just over 260 now. And on 3rd and 6, having him on one side in placing either Amari or David Bailey on the other in rotating those guys. That is a pain for an opposing offensive coordinator. If you want to really make a run, if you really want to make a splash, if you really want to prove to your big name boosters that this season means something, it's not, we're just going to try to be decent. Here's a chance. Your projected win total by Vegas right now is give or take 7.5, depending on the book. I picked 7 wins, give or take, because A, I don't think they've got enough depth. B, enough proven playmakers at key positions like offensive tackle, pass rusher. Corner, they're good, but quarterback, it's still a new system. Defensive tackle, it's a new system. They got Darryl, but he hasn't proven it. You got a lot of question marks. Here's a chance to go get a bona fide, no doubt, I'm going to play in the NFL guy. Does Florida State at least make a strong run? And allow me to define strong run. Big offer, and it's not just hearsay. Need to find out what that number is because it's going to take a big number. I don't know. But again, this is a guy that can help you change your win column number. He's a proven player. He gave Notre Dame fits last year. Obviously, Notre Dame was pretty good. This is a guy that teams had to scheme against. And again, he had good numbers. And I'm not trying to pick on him, but Stanford was bad. They were really bad. If you get this kid, you can really change a lot of things, not just for this season. It also, again, sends a message that you're proving that you want to win and not just, we're just going to kind of wait to get to the Big Ten or the SEC. You're trying to win now to the best of your, I'm not saying you're going to the national championship game. I'm not saying that, but you're at least bona fide a team that can win and be competitive with every team they play against. That's not too much to ask at Florida State, I would dare say. Getting this young man would change your trajectory. Let's see if Florida State does it. When we come back, I'm going to talk about some recruiting, including a young man I had a chance to interview a couple months ago as he took an unofficial visit to Florida State. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Daylight savings snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means time for more fun, but sometimes you need a little extra boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late for the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. For me, and for a lot of Americans right now, the NCAA basketball tournament will probably keep you up later than you should probably do. That doesn't mean the 5-Hour Energy can't help you out the next morning. It's also pretty easy to get. You can order it online, and you can always pick some up at your convenience store. So head over to 5hourenergy.com and choose from over 15 flavors like blue raspberry or peach mango. Need one now? Grab one at your local grocery store. They're everywhere. 5-Hour Energy. Stock up today and stay energized. Florida State recruiting is a roller coaster to try to follow, especially this spring coming off a very disastrous 2024 season. How are recruits going to respond? How many are going to show up for practices? Who gets offered? Who do they have a chance at? More questions than I've got time to even ask, let alone answer. One of the things that I like, though, is good news in terms of surprises. Deron Parks, one of the best offensive linemen and best overall players, for that matter, in the state of Florida, is a young man that took an unofficial visit to Florida State per multiple sites, 24/7 Noles, War Chant, etc. Before I talk about the visit and all that, here are a couple key things to note. I had a chance to meet with Deron at Under Armour in Orlando. Great guy, super personality. He could get along with anybody, and quite frankly, fit into any locker room at the college football level. Secondarily, This is a guy that knows he's very talented. They could play early. Florida State, if they really did a good job from top to bottom, rolled out the red carpet for him, they have a chance here. Playing time matters a lot to him. He thinks he can play early. But to that point, his list of schools is extensive. He's 6'5", 345, and can play tackle. Those are rare players. I've seen it with my own eyes. I would project him at guard as beginning of his career, but I think he will end up playing left or right tackle after he reshapes his body, gets down to 315, 320. Can't go wrong with that. He's at Cardinal Mooney High School in Sarasota. That's a really good program in terms of the off the field, the social fit. Jared Clark, former player at Notre Dame, is now back there as the head coach. That's where he played in high school. And he's a guy that's got that program doing pretty well, considering its size and everything. And Parks is one of those kids that he has in his program, and he's fortunate to have him. I think this is the kind of guy they can steal. I didn't know he was that serious about Florida State. This kind of snuck up on me. He'd mentioned them to me, but I didn't know they were like, okay, they're legit. He had a good visit per all the recruiting sites. I'll just leave it at that. You can check out 24/7 Noles or On3 for more specifics, but this is good. The team that I think, now something could have changed, but the team that I think is most likely to be the competition for Florida State would be Auburn. He had a great relationship with them earlier this spring, and maybe that has changed, but I don't think so. And if he does have a good relationship with them, I highly doubt that's going to change much with the coaches now at FSU, because like Herb Hand's coach there, and so's Gus, and they're just down-to-earth guys, and that's what he talked about with the Auburn staff when I was having an interview with Deron Parks. Very similar. Plus Florida State's in-state. It's a lot closer. It takes me about 3.5 hours, give or take, from the Auburn area to get to Florida State. So that's a long way. It's easier for him to get there. Florida State has a lot to sell with Mr. Parks. Secondarily, there are a couple other kids that like On3 and 24/7 and whatnot interviewed, and I just want to touch on them. One kid I've never met, and I've never seen him play live, and he's on my short bucket list for this year. That's Chauncey Kennan, another Sarasota player, ironically. He is over at Booker High School. Looks like Florida State's doing really well. I always say follow the visits, and I didn't know Chauncey was coming back, but him being back on campus gave a whole bunch of superlatives about how the staff recruited him, etc., Coach Norvell and all that. This is a good sign. This is a national recruit, so just forget who it is, position, in-state, out-of-state for a second. Florida State's still got some cachet in the recruiting realm. That's important. You need to be able to get kids even when your program is down a little bit because you are in filling the name of the school. Georgia, Florida, Miami, Florida State, and on and on and on and on offered Chauncey Kennan a scholarship. There aren't a lot of 6'2", 175-pound corners that move like he does. He could play free safety or nickel too. He's just a really good football player. But if they get him back on campus a third time, I think it's twice. I could be wrong. I'll have to check on that. But I believe he's been to FSU twice since the new year, maybe even be three. But if they get him back again, whether it's before the end of spring or the final spring, whatever it is, I think we can just, whether he states it or not, can kind of say, okay, barring something unforeseen and Florida State laying another egg this season, he's probably going to end up at Florida State. Again, follow the visits. Do you visit places you don't like? Of course not. Chauncey Kennan is very much enamored with Florida State, and they're doing a good job recruiting him, so hats off to the Florida State staff. Finally, one more player to discuss, and this is a kid that I've seen, but I don't know him on a personal level, and I've never interviewed him, I don't think, at least not off the top of my head. American Heritage wide receiver Brandon Bennett. And to put it in perspective how fast he is, a couple of years ago I was at a practice, and he wasn't there at that one, I don't believe. If he was, I don't think so, because I went to a couple, but the one I was at that particular day, he wasn't. And I was told that he was a part of the 4x4 team that wasn't just good. They're all sophomores. And they ended up setting the national record that year for speed and the time as sophomores. He was one of those guys. He was 10-4 in the 100, give or take, as a sophomore in high school. Must be nice. So he's obviously a deep threat. And he talked about, again, interviews 24/7 On3, all the different sites. Being a deep threat because Florida State, watching the practice that he was at, he liked how they got the playmakers the ball in space and took shots down the field. It absolutely fits him. I mean, I've seen him run by guys. You can play 5-7 yards off Brandon Bennett. It's not enough. If you do not get hands on him and use really good technique at the line, Brandon Bennett is one of those guys that could run with any player in the history of Florida State football. He's one of those guys, somebody that could just give up on football and trade in his football cleats for track spikes and go get paid. He's that kind of speed. I'm curious to see how he continues to develop as a player, but this guy has a little bit of an extra interest for me, and here's why. I'm a traditionalist. I talk about this a lot, but Bobby Bowden used to recruit a lot of different guys that just had raw speed, and they would figure it out. Running back, corner, safety, slot, whatever. Bennett can play multiple spots too, but he's a receiver. His mentality is that spot. He enjoys it. And by golly, there is nothing wrong with making the other team think twice about bringing a safety into the box. He would be a really unique fit for Florida State football. I'd be curious to see what they would do with him. And Gus, especially if you use Brandon the way I think they would in the slot quite a bit, he would probably catch a lot of screens. It's not fun chasing the rabbit, especially in the fourth quarter on a 3rd and 4, and they run a slip screen, some kind of a bubble screen, some kind of, here comes the H-back out into the flat, and he just kicks out, cross blocks against the DB, and Brandon gets that first step straight up the field, like those kind of things. And then a DB that's 7-8 yards off the ball has to try to make a tackle. Those guys are not much fun to tackle. I'd be curious to see how Florida State would use him. So that's just a name to know. And again, he's an American heritage. I don't think you can really go wrong with recruiting that program. And Florida State's had some success in American heritage too. That's where Satan was. So keep an eye on Mr. Bennett. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in and talk some Noles with me. Everybody have a good day. Thank you very much, and we will see you again soon.